Yukon, Siberia, remote Scandinavia, maybe. I don't know. They sedated me on the flight. I'm not sure how long I was out.
Same.
Somewhere in the far northern hemisphere, though. I know that much.
How can you be so sure about that?
The seasons. It was early fall when I left the States. It was still fall when I arrived.
Military?
Marines. Former.
What's the longest kill shot you've ever made? Don't say that you don't know. Every top shelf sniper knows the distance of every ticket they've ever punched, so come on.
3,241 meters.
3,200. A kill shot.
Yeah.
That would put you in,
Top 5 in the world.
Did you make that impossible shot in Yemen May of last year?
I did not participate in, nor do I have any knowledge of any operation in Yemen in May of last year.
Rumor was it was windy. 25 knots east to west with gusts of 40. That would have been a very, very good shot.
3,800 meters. World record.
I'd kiss the ring of whoever made that shot. Too bad it wasn't you. What?
I've been staring at this gorge every day for the last 6 months, and I gotta say the view is much better over here.
Hey, Adrenalheads. Welcome back to the show. I'm Mark.
And I'm Becky.
And the movie that we're going to be covering this episode of the podcast is The Gorge that just came out on Apple TV Plus. And it was one of those as I was anticipating that I thought would be like, wow, this looks very adventurous. It had me intrigued just from the trailer alone. And what, kind of excites me for certain movies like this. It had that kind of, you didn't know what to expect from the story. So it just, like I said, it came out in February 2025, just recently, probably within the past week or so. And I thought, and I threw it up there for you guys to send in feedback if you could. But we did get a little bit of feedback.
Awesome.
I have to grab that now because I didn't think about it till just now mentioning this. But anyhow, I'm going to copy that real quick. And I'll put it in the doc so we have it. Smell me for not being a little bit worked on this particular thing, but not to take away from you from what we're saying, everybody. Okay, so I got that in there. Now that I thought about it, took a little while, but the synopsis of this movie, Becky, you want to deliver that for us?
Sure. Two highly trained operatives grow close from a distance after being sent to guard opposite sides of a mysterious gorge. When an evil emerges, they must work together to survive what lies within.
Yep, and that's the actual synopsis that you get when you hover over the episode on Apple TV Plus. If you have an Apple TV itself, you get that and it just shows up. I just typed it in verbatim, and it's very loose in its description. So it's kind of like, oh, they want to suck you into the story. I already was sucked into the story of seeing these high towers on either side of a gorge, and then you seeing Miles Teller and Anya Taylor-Joy, and they didn't show the immensity of the firepower that we do get in the movie, but I thought it was pretty cool. That to me was interesting.
I appreciated that because so many movies nowadays, they release a trailer and you've basically seen the entire movie. And
right.
This is not a movie, had you not brought it up, that I probably would have watched on my own. But once I saw the trailer for it, like you said, it really gave enough to be like, I'm curious what this is about, and made me want to watch it and, kind of get behind the mystery of what is this gorge and all that good stuff. It was, I'm glad you pointed it in my direction.
Yeah, it was one of those movies that just came around. But one thing that I was discussing with a couple of people I know from work and stuff like that, they were saying it was a little long. Usually with something like this, you would think they would wrap it up in an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes. Usually these kind of movies, it's very, it's our thought process of movies that came out that were action adventure back in the 80s, let's just say, because it was always the standard to be like an hour and 45 minutes and you were good. Movies today now with all the super big budgeted films that are out there go over the 2 hour mark. You know, look at Captain America Brave New World. That was a little over 2 hours. This one itself is 2 hours and 7 minutes. And, you know, that's excluding like credits and everything like that.
They could have cut 30 minutes out and I would have given it a much better rating.
Yeah, exactly right. You had some information here.
Yeah, it's directed by Scott Derrickson, who directed Deliver Us from Evil, Doctor Strange, and the Black Phone, and written by Zach Dean, known for Fast X and the Tomorrow World. Or War, sorry.
This is Derrickson's 7th movie. So he'd been around, but he's been getting great acclaim. I loved The Black Phone. That was such an intense thriller of a film. And it was very odd and strange, kind of like a serial killer kind of movie, but very well written, very well directed, and very well received. So I think he's hit it out of the park with some of the films that he's done, like Deliver Us from Evil and Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange, it was the first Doctor Strange, everybody, from my understanding. And and this one, I liked it. It was pretty cool. So we're going to move right into where we know that this movie didn't have as many actors in it.
Which I think was part of what made it great is it wasn't a jam-packed cast of people. They carried it. They did a great job. But of course, when we get through who these people are, you'll see why they made such an impact.
Yeah, they did. To me, it was kind of like a bottled movie. It was bottled up within maximum 5 people, but we only have a few here that we all know that are key actors within it. I'll start off first. Obviously, one of the main characters, Anya Taylor-Joy, who plays Draza, and we all know her from the show The Queen's Gambit. I think that was on HBO, if I recall.
I saw it I think it was Netflix.
Was it on Netflix? Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah, it was Netflix. Okay. Furiosa, a Mad Max Saga, The Menu, which I do enjoy. I enjoyed that film. It was
good.
And you have The Split, or is it Split by M. Night Shyamalan? Because she was in Split with M. Night Shyamalan.
Yeah, that one.
Okay.
I got this from her IMDb page, so.
Yeah. She's been around a long time. I wouldn't say a super long time, but I think she made her first appearance that everybody realized and recognized her in was The Witch. And she's got those big eyes. It draws you in, but it's wild. And she's got a unique look to her, and she's a very attractive woman. Next up.
Miles Teller, speaking of attractive people, he plays Levi Kane. Most notable roles are Divergent, War Dogs, Fantastic Four, and my favorite, Top Gun Maverick. He plays Goose, who was my favorite in the original Top Gun. He plays his son, and I think he does a phenomenal job. There were times it was like looking at Anthony Edwards. It's really weird.
Yeah, and this he plays Levi Kane, which is the other main. You have West and East.
It's a great name
Tower.
too.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool name. When I knew it was Levi, but I was like, Levi Kane. That's not bad. Yeah, he was in that Fantastic Four movie by Josh Trank that didn't do well.
I didn't watch it.
Oh, it had high hopes. I knew a lot of people that were gunning for it, thinking, it's going to be great. You still had a great cast of actors, but it didn't do well based or received well. It's something that we probably will talk about when we cover Fantastic Four on the Pounds to Pixels podcast. And we'll do a little bit of a comparison of all the Fantastic Four movies in comparison to the new one when it comes out. So look forward to that. Last on our list, because we only have 3 out of the total of 5 people that are in a movie, would be Sigourney Weaver, who plays Bartholomew. And she is the head of of the hiring of these 2 people to do what they have to do at this gorge. We all know her from the movie Dave, of course, in Ghostbusters, Avatar, and of course, the Alien saga that was out there, Aliens, and Aliens 3, and all of them that she was in.
I know she's got such a long history of phenomenal movies, but I had to throw Dave in there because that's one of my favorite movies of all time.
Yeah, I remember that movie. But she's in this, and we'll go into my thoughts about her character, which makes me laugh because she was in another movie that it gave me similarities to it based on the character itself. But overall, we're going to go into our general thoughts of the movie. So, Becky, what were your thoughts overall of the film? Did you like it? Did you hate it?
I liked it. It wasn't the greatest movie I've ever seen, but it was good.
Mm-hmm.
Like we said earlier, I think it went on about 30 minutes longer than it needed to. But like you said, that is the bar for movies nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoyed the love story aspect. I think the chemistry between the 2 was really great. The mystery that slowly unfolded about the gorge was really cool. I kind of liked. I got that the gorge could be seen as a representation of purgatory. I thought the scenery was beautiful. The special effects, a lot of it was over the top, but generally a lot of it that was important was good. The action was great, but my absolute favorite thing is the soundtrack, and I have saved that playlist on Spotify and have been listening to it for the last 4 days. I would give it a 3.75 super creepy spider things out of 5.
I would definitely give it at least a good, 4 out of 5 for me.
Yeah.
It would have been a full 5 if a few things were changed within it. I did enjoy it. I loved it. The first 3 acts were pretty good. 3/4 of the film was great. And then there was like a low point. And then the ending didn't disappoint me. I really did enjoy it because this is something that I was looking toward at the very beginning. There are a few things that, you had to suspend your disbelief in certain times during the film, but we'll talk about that a little bit in depth. But yeah, I really did enjoy the film. I was looking forward to it. I wouldn't say it. I can't say it didn't disappoint, but it did give me. I could watch that again, but I would only watch up to like key certain parts.
Yeah.
It's kind of like listening to like 3/4 of a song that you like. It's like, I don't like the last part of this, but I'll listen up to the guitar solo, stuff like that. But yeah, for a movie that like literally was on a budget of between 50 and 70 million dollars to make, and it was some of those it was like kind of, it gave the feel, and some people who are professional on there that did review this already stated it as stating that that's a lot of cash to put into a movie that feels like it belongs in a late night cable slot back in the 1980s. And literally that's how it felt. And that's why, before we started recording, Becky and I were talking, and it kind of, back in the 80s, you had films that lasted an hour and 45 minutes that were action and gave you beginning and ending, like Lethal Weapon or Die Hard or something like that. And they weren't full 2-hour films or over two-hour films. Now, in this new day and age of movie making and super high budgeted films, those movies go for over 2 hours long. Now, obviously, you wind up paying for more of it at the end, like to see the movie in the theater. But with this one, it was like kind of similar to direct to cable,
Yeah, they were smart not to put this in the theaters.
Yeah, I didn't go into researching if it was put in theaters, because lately with Apple, they have been doing that where they have not only in the theater, but literally within 3 weeks of it being in the theater, it's already on Apple TV Plus, which is odd. But they're trying to dip their toes in that whole movie making territory, just like Netflix was at one point, because Netflix was doing their own movies as well, and some of them were in the theater a while back, and now everything is more direct to Netflix. There was a bunch of stuff in the film that I did like, but if you want to start off, Becky, I'm sure you have a long laundry list.
I do. Actually, not too long. You'd be surprised. I didn't even fill up a full page.
Oh, wow.
But which, if you all know me, I have usually 2 or 3 pages of notes. But my first favorite moment was watching Dratha with her dad. I thought it was just such a very sweet. You start off seeing her as this vicious sharpshooter who takes out someone, and then she goes to sit with her dad who's dying. And the moment when he's like, give me your shame, she gives him the bullet, and they comfort each other. And then we find out, he's dying, and then she's got to go and do this top secret task. So I really enjoyed, they did good to show us her hard side, but also her soft side. So when they got together at the towers, it made it believable.
Interesting. I really did enjoy the intro to it, how they were hired. You didn't see Droz's hiring. You only saw Levi's, but how he was introduced, how he was brought through this little tour by the previous person that was set up on the tower where he had to work, and what was available to him. Now, obviously, they have no internet. They have nothing. They're literally on their own. He has books. He's been reading a lot of books. The firepower was amazing that they had.
Yeah.
And what they had to protect. And some of the firepower, and it was crazy. I thought, they only have like sniper guns or things like that. And now it's like, whoa, they have this. But how they were supposed to not be able to communicate, and of course that right away it took him about, I would say, about a month or so until he started the conversation with her, or she giving the conversation. Yeah,
because he was like, birthday. No, we're not supposed to do this, and she's like, I don't care.
Yeah, and because it was all about her birthday, and she wanted to celebrate in some way, and they got to know each other through just communicating through, these signs and looking through some high-powered binoculars because they're so far away. And then the challenging of each other, and you could see the relationship building through that. And I thought it was kind of one of those, like, no dialogue, but just pure acting, and just showing it there on how they represented the characters, and challenging each other with the shots back and forth.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. That's one of my points, is one of my favorite was the flirtation between the two from a distance, when he put the Christmas tree lights up for her, just these that, like you said, there was no dialogue. There was music, which was some very good music that did, I think, help build up the romantic vibe that they were feeling. But the two of them, just through facial expressions and body movements and whatnot, expressed so much. And I thought that this part was going to be the cheesy part, but it was actually really the most beautiful part of the story, is just watching them get to know each other from a distance. I thought it was beautiful.
Yeah. I really did enjoy that. A lot of people are, there were those people out there in the naysayers. I've talked about this at work with some friends I have there, and they're like, I liked it. Not as much.
Yeah.
But I was like, well, it depends on what you are looking, or what you like and what you look for. And I really did enjoy that. I really like the idea of this kind of long distance romance, and they make it happen where she's like, "What are you up to?" And him pulling together to make that zip line was amazing. He just like he took a rocket launcher, took the bomb parts out of it, and very carefully, and it's like he knew what he was doing, and she was all looking forward to it. And then he zip lines, but he had to pull himself the rest of the way, like he was there 3/4 away, and then he had to get off. And then of course it's like and you knew it's like, oh, they're gonna get together.
Yeah, I didn't hate that shower scene. That's another one of my favorite moments.
I thought that was hilarious. I thought that was so funny.
She's so cheeky, moving the clothes out, so
yep.
she got to get a glimpse of
his tushy,
what was going on there. That was so cute.
Oh man, I loved it. And the fact that they had dinner and everything else. What was it? Rabbit pie or something?
Rabbit pie. And what I loved most about that dinner is they took time to show them talking, having conversation, getting to know each other
more.
And then that very intimate dance that they did, and the way that whoever we mentioned it, but whoever the director was, and the way they chose to shoot that was absolutely stunning. And then that happening while Spitting Off the Edge of the World plays. It just felt like, there's two lost, lonely souls who find each other and feeling that affection for each other. But you could say, oh, that happened too fast. But the way they built it up with that long distance connection made it seem so real. And I love, as much as I wouldn't mind seeing a naked Miles Teller rolling around, I'm glad they gave us the intimacy of what was going on, but didn't show it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It's like, no, we don't need to have a sex scene here in the film. We don't have to show two naked people. Let's make it, like Skinamax back in the day. Remember? So it was done tastefully, in my opinion, and it was one of those things. It's like, well, you got more of the romance than you did the actual naked play or whatever it is.
This wasn't lust. This was actual genuine
tenderness and understanding, and then them getting to know each other. I really did enjoy that aspect of it. A lot of people would say I'm a wussy for saying it, but I don't care.
I want to back up though before we get into what happens down in the gorge. Another one of my favorite scenes that happened earlier on. I knew when JD was picked up, he was not going home.
Oh,
and that was absolutely heartbreaking. He was so happy and so excited. And then the guy's like, thank you for your service, and cuts him loose. Like, what a way to go.
Shoots him in the head, I believe, and then cuts him loose. It's like, I was expecting it. I knew something.
I was like, there's no way they're going to let him go home.
Yeah, and it kind of alluded to that based upon the interview that Sigourney Weaver's character had with Levi. So when she was talking, basically he had no family.
Yeah, and he says later, and when he's talking to Drassa, he's like, well, you know why they picked me? Because I'm expendable. I don't have, and same with her, other than her dad, they don't, and he's gone now, so they don't have anyone. So there's no one that's going to miss them when they don't come home.
Yeah. So that was one of the things, and that's what I think the really good writing was in there for them to find each other.
Yeah.
And I thought that's what gives this, to me, a good mark in writing. But for the certain scenes, like the wonderful action scenes I was thinking about, and I always think about, is the firepower that they were using when you see the first like animals, things that were coming up from the gorge, and how they had to battle them off, and they realized that they sound was attracting them So when Draza was doing her little dance with the Ramones and all that for her birthday, I think that's what really instigated that. So they are attracted to the sound to come up. They already had like bombs and on the walkways on the outskirts of the gorge itself or of the towers. So they were platforms so that they could actually reload and do all the bombs and everything. And they were all censored and triggered, kind of like landmines. And then it was like between both of them fighting off on both ends of shooting those things off. So we got to get to see these creatures and what they were. But the one thing that took me away and why I had to suspend my disbelief is when he leaves her for the day to zip line back. And then I was like, yep, he's not making it back. And I knew right away that was going to be, it's a key of writing. You know, it's already foreshadowed. And then he goes down, but his parachute goes off, but it looks like it didn't, the parachute didn't engage until like very far down. So I would think, oh, it's either A, he's going to have fallen water or he should be hurt specifically. But he wasn't. He, you know, that was the one thing I was like, hey, I can't really believe that. They should have something like him being wounded in some way. I already knew that she was going to jump down and seeing her jump down. Wow.
That was cool.
And there was a lot more practicality within them, not more CG. They actually, there were a couple of interviews with Anya Taylor-Joy about how she had to push herself, and I think she hurt herself a little bit too while doing certain scenes. And one of them was the jump, and obviously it was over. It's not as tall as the Gorge, everybody. That's movie magic, but it's still physical activity of doing it. And she goes down there, and of course the key factor is that they couldn't get back up. And I already knew that was coming. There's no way for them to come back up. The first thing I thought, I saw her grab something. And then when she says to him, she goes, I lost the puller to bring us back up. And I was like, yep, that's key to it. They got to find another way to get. But with that, that's where the adventure begins. And we find out it was after Oppenheimer and the bomb that they created this virus or whatever it is. And it was, and they realized with what they have, and it was a company that builds on this or creating military or weaponized things. And it's more genetic weaponization because they were trying to make the best soldier. And with that, we find out that whatever it is, whether it be a toxin or whatnot that they're exposed to, or was exposed to down in that gorge where they had people working on it, intertwined the genetic codes of insects, plant life, and animals.
Yeah.
And I thought it was cool to see what looked like a 1940s soldier on a horse with the sword. And he looked like a tree, but I thought the CG was kind of lacking a little bit. That's where I kind of leave off on this. The CG was kind of lacking a bit. It could have been a lot smoother.
Almost like they took parts of, like you mentioned it earlier, how the soldiers looked a lot like.
Oh, the Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah.
Pirates.
And I think that giant heart mutation that was in the center by the bomb was very Last of Us. It's almost like they took bits and pieces.
Yeah.
And tried to make their own characters. But I will say on the gorge itself, I think that them finding this laboratory and just happening to find this video with the generator, it was too convenient that it was all just laid out like that. But I do give them, they had to explain it somehow. But I loved that it was, I went into this, I love the supernatural. And I went into this thinking that was these were supernatural beings. But then to find out that typical of our, secret governments, that they caused that this was a man-made problem. And now they're spending all of this time resources and people's lives to trying to keep it safe instead of doing the right thing and just destroying it. I thought that was a great point that they made in the political point, I guess you could say, that they made in the movie. And I think I will give them credit that they did a good job of the different colors of the different areas as they're going through the gorge. I wish they would have told us a little bit more about what that meant.
Yeah.
And then the horsemen were cool, like you said, but I had to look away at the spiders and the bugs because that was just that was too much for me. That was too good CGI on that.
I like that they were able to get a computer, have all these files. Levi realizes that this has been going on for years, and that's why, they've been trying to monitor it to see what they could get out of it so they can make all this money off of this weaponized genetics program. And like I said, they're trying to make a super soldier in that sense of but this was like the reason why they created this virus or this toxin or anything that does this was basically a response to the bomb itself, the nuclear bomb. And I love how we get a whole video reference of this, and you see the doctor, and she's almost suffering from the effects of it herself. I was waiting for her to change right on screen, but we didn't get that. And then them through the platforms and having to climb up and go through the building to get out and obviously battle their way out was interesting. The one where it looks like a brain, and as they're walking through the platform, and you can't touch cool. And wait.
That was a very cool visual.
That was just that was like something out of what would it be?
It made me think of The Last of Us, walking through the cordyceps.
Yeah, it could be like The Last of Us. It could be like A Quiet Place where you can't make a noise. But in this case, you can't touch it because it's almost like nerve endings that they're touching. So it wakens itself. And you could see how it was not only affecting people who were living that were there, that worked there, and that were transformed, but it looked like with that whole brain or nervous system looking thing on the platforms where they had to go because they could see the bomb. And I knew that there was going to be a last minute writing ploy to implement that bomb. But it looked like it was creating new life as well. So it was creating on itself as well. So it was more of like taking from the people and their genetic code and their flesh and then creating more of it of its own. So it was evolving. And then they're able to get out. They already know that they have to wait 5 days in order to survive this so that they don't catch the symptoms of what it is. So at least they were given that information so they know. So it's not like a surprise. But it was one of those things that adds to thrilling of it where you're like, oh, is this going to happen? Oh, is this going to happen? And then but we know that they were already compromised because they were already seen. He did his check-in finally, but he hadn't checked in for a while. If you think about it, it'd been 2 days since he last checked in, but he made it back on time for his check-in. Yeah, and then she didn't have one, but it was funny how Sigourney Weaver's character Bartholomew kind of figures it out because they saw the cameras because they're always monitoring. So she knew he was lying. Yeah. So then it became like, oh, we got to get these people and get them out of there or take them out. So she personally goes there with a vengeance and a duty. And that was
my favorite scene of the movie is where she realizes she's totally screwed and that bomb goes off and takes her out.
Yeah, but which kind of reminds me of the movie Cabin in the Woods because she plays a character that's head of the company that does that in that movie. And it's the same type of character of, oh, I got to take this. I'm going to take care of this personally. and literally it also does the same thing and takes her out. But Yeah, that's why I said there's a lot. They pulled a lot from different movies, and or it references it without really referencing it. And nothing is entirely original these days if you think about it. So
No, it's hard to be.
yeah, but I like nonetheless, I still enjoyed it. I found it great and interesting, but I love, like I said, just like the visuals as they're in the gorge itself, and you could see old buildings, cars, things of that nature. Looked like there was a movie theater there too in the background.
Oh, it's a whole city.
It was like a whole like community down there
Yeah.
that was creating all this. And them walking through it reminded me of the movie The Mist.
Yeah, very much so. I
Yeah,
agree.
because it was very just the shadowing and the just the sets itself and how it looked. But that I really enjoyed that of it. But like I said, the bomb came into play at the very end, and it does take out Bartholomew in the helicopter. She goes, "We need more distance, not height, to get away from this." And it's like, yeah, she did.
No, yeah. As soon as that went off, I was like, yay. That made me happy because that made me, I stopped to think, when Levi discovers all of those writings on the wall
Mm,
from all the people that came before him and realizes that the guy he's fighting was the original, I'm guessing, part of the original battalion that went down
yes.
to try to stop what was going on before they, I'm assuming, just set up the watchtower to just try to keep it contained.
Hmm.
That she's responsible for a lot of lives, not just what she destroyed by continuing to allow this thing to grow,
Mm,
but down in the gorge, but the people that she's tasked to watch it. And also, if you think, there's got to be a lot of people, a lot of those soldiers that are like bodyguards that probably at the end of their run she killed off because she wanted, that was a very important secret for her to keep. So
yeah.
it was very satisfying to see her go away.
Same here. Yeah, it's the villain, as we like to say.
Yeah.
It's like she's the villain, but really it's like big business or big government. And
Yeah.
then it's like Levi and Draza are the ones that are like against it. So I thought it was pretty cool. And then they were able to get away. So the ending I thought was really crafty, how he was able to track and find her and just
Yeah,
show up at that
sweet.
restaurant where she is waiting on people. Now they leave it off as they have the rest of their lives. I thought it was kind of predictable that Bartholomew shows up at the very end of their 5 days or whatever it was to show any. It was a 4 or 5, I forgot. But even still, but he was able to find her, and it's the happily ever
And
after
that setting
ending.
was beautiful.
Oh yeah, yeah, that was it had a beautiful view for where she was working. It was right by the water and everything. I forgot what country it was because
France.
France. Oh yeah, that's right, because she was talking about that. That's
She told him, I have a place in France. Let's just go. Run away. I have a place in France that will be safe.
yeah. So I thought that was pretty cool. So it was the ending. I really did enjoy. It was like the whole battle in between. They could have like
Shrunk it.
yeah, shrunk them getting out and dealing with all the monsters, but that was pretty much the allure to the movie, is to get people to watch this for that reason. Me, as I watched it, and I liked the romantic aspect of it and everything else, so that really caught my attention more than anything, which is very odd for me because I love my action films, but
You
this
do. I'm glad you got it too. I feel the same way. I thought the chemistry and the building of their relationship was actually the best part of the entire
exactly.
movie.
Yeah, I feel the same way, and it's just like, yeah, I really do enjoy that. Uh, you know, maybe I'm a romantic at heart. I don't
You are.
know. But other than that, I think that's those are my overall thoughts about the movie, what I liked about it.
Yeah, that's all
Little
I've got
things.
too.
But we can move into you've kind of done some research, some interesting facts or unknown facts about the movie. So you want to start us off with the first one you have?
Sure. You want me to do the ratings?
No, we do the ratings at the end of this.
Okay.
And
All right.
then,
Well, in the Christmas montage, let me start that over. In the Christmas montage scene, they play chess, which is referencing Taylor Joy's breakout role in The Queen's Gambit,
okay.
and then play drums, which references Teller's breakout role in Whiplash. During an Entertainment Weekly interview, Teller said that was in the script from the very beginning before either of us were attached to this project. That was a part of the very first draft, and they did try to get it removed, but
Huh.
they said no. I thought
Well,
that was neat.
it was pretty cool. Only those people who are true fans of these two actors would know that. Be like, oh, they're playing chess. Oh, drumming and everything else. But it makes sense.
Yeah.
But
But I think it was cool that it was in there before they were even
attached to it.
Yeah, so
Yeah. Because they were probably auditioning other actors and it just through happenstance, it just happened. It's like, oh, we got these and they're just in there. Next one up that you have here, the bottom of the gorge, as well as some creatures, are visually heavily inspired by the work of Polish painter Zdzisław Baksinski, which
gave that to you on
I saw what you
purpose.
did there by having me read that name.
I'm like, I'm not saying that. You did good though.
All right.
The next one we have is the original draft of the script had JD surviving for a good portion of the film instead of their sudden death in the final product. I'm curious as to how that would have played out.
Same here. That would have been interesting. Huh. Interesting. But all right, we'll move into ratings on this. Obviously, I didn't grab this information. Becky did, everybody. So it's on the we do follow Rotten Tomatoes on occasion and put all that. So she has here Rotten Tomatoes score. So on the tomatometer, you get a 64%, and that's the actual critics, the real ones that go out there from papers and live TV, all that good stuff. So it's at 64%, but the popcorn meter, which is literally the audience meter, those people who have like a Rotten Tomatoes account and put in their thoughts, gives it a 78%. So it's a lot. It did capture people's interest and people liked it at 70%. So that's good.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, there's an IMDb rating, and that was 6.8 out of 10. So it's averagely good to a lot of people from what it has here listed. It's just the tomatometer one is pretty funny at a 64%. At least it's not like a like 20% in certain movies.
Yeah, it could be
really
way. I've seen some movies that, God bless them.
Yeah.
Oof.
Yeah, you're like, ooh, that movie. Yeah. Kind of like when we did Joker 2.
Oh, it still makes me sad. I think I blocked that out of my mind.
I know, right? All right, so you went and did a little deep diving into it. You said you have the Spotify list on playlist on your Spotify account.
Yes.
You want to talk about the music within the movie that we hear?
Yes. First off, if you have not, go to Spotify and just search the Gorge soundtrack, and you'll get a phenomenal playlist. But my favorites that were featured in the movie that I just wanted to highlight. So if you don't want to listen to the whole thing, please check out these particular songs.
Yeah.
But my favorite, I've listened to it on repeat too many times, is the Spitting Off the Edge of the World by Yeah Yeah Yeahs that was playing when they had their dinner and were having their dance together. It just, I love music that makes me feel, and that scene together with that song, that song will forever be a song I thoroughly enjoy now.
Awesome.
The next one, and I'm pretty sure you appreciated this one too. I did not know it existed, and I'm grateful, and it is now on my Christmas playlist is
they have a whole Christmas album.
I did not know that, and thank you. I will go look it up because their cover of "Oh Come All You Faithful" was so cool. I had immediately added it to my Christmas playlist. So
yeah.
Thank you, Twisted Sister, for that. And thank you, Mark, for letting me know they have a whole album.
They have a whole album. And oddly enough, a little history of that, me with them, because I know some of the guys in Twisted Sister. I was friends with AJ Perro, the drummer. Sadly enough, AJ's no longer with us, but it's a good testament to him having that song in here. But I remember when the album came out, and I think it was like one of the few times I had gone back to Staten Island since I moved up to Dutchess County, New York. And I went down to visit, and then he gave me a copy of the Christmas album. He was like, "Here, dude." I was like, "Awesome. All right." And I'm like, a whole fricky dicky album
That's
of Christmas
cool.
tunes. And the cool part of that is, it's like when I first heard this version of "Oh Come All Ye Faithful," you could tell right away with Twisted Sister what they do is it's like it's got the segue in the very beginning is almost like they're just reutilizing riffs from "We're Not Gonna Take."
Yeah.
And when the songs do come up though, like the Ramones, when that song that she's bouncing around to, which I'm a huge Ramones fan, when the music does come in at certain points, like Twisted Sister came in, it was loud. The Ramones was loud. It was played loud. And then the next song, if you want to talk about it, this was a little bit lower in the mix, but I had never heard of it, but makes me want to go download it. Or
I put it on here because I was very curious. The song is phenomenal, and it's All Along the Watchtower. But this is a cover done by Ed Sheeran and Devlin, and I hadn't heard it either. And I was curious, given your history of music and your knowledge and whatnot, I was curious what you thought of this particular cover.
I really did like it.
Cool.
I did really like. I'm like, wow, this is a really good version of it in a different way. You know, it's not the Hendrix version or cover of it, but you know, it kind of gives you a little bit of feel. So very different along from where it originally was and who wrote it. So
yeah. And the last one, I put this on here because I love my girl bands, my lady bands, the women in music, and Florence and the Machines is one of my all-time favorites, and it's a song "Free" by her. So if you have time or just looking for some good music to listen to, check out the whole soundtrack, but be sure to listen to these 4 songs. I think you'll really, really get a lot out of them.
Yeah. All right. As we move along within the podcast, as we always do, we're going to move on because we're already closing towards the end of the podcast, everybody. But we have quotes. I don't have any quotes, but Becky does.
I do. Surprise. I like it when Drawson's dad said, Drawson was talking about her dad saying, "Too much truth puts sadness in your heart and madness in your mind." And then when Levi wrote on the wall that Bartholomew saw, 3 things cannot be hidden long: the sun, the moon, and the truth, which was a quote by Buddha. And lastly, JD describing what he knows about the Gorge to Levi. He says, "It's the door to hell, and they're standing guard at the gate." Kind of feel like that's America right now. So I just like those quotes. So thanks for letting me share those.
Yeah, that's pretty cool though. They're good quotes. All right. We did get feedback, and I said to you guys in the beginning, it's like, oh, I've forgotten I had to put it in. But I did put it in. So we did get it. This is from a friend of the podcast, somebody who I know from Jason Gabassi's Patreon as well, and fellow Kids on Bikers gamer.
And one of the sweetest human beings on the planet.
And it's from our friend Margaret Doty Sheffield. And this is what Doty has to say. "Hi, all. Just an observation on the Gorge. Tom and I watched it and I found it quite entertaining, but on reflection, I began to wonder if the story could have been generated by AI. That's a good question.
Yeah.
it seemed to be a mashup of at least several movies I loved. So yeah, we feel the same way to some degree. One was a Korean zombie movie, Alive, in which two survivors of zombie apocalypse who live opposite one another in facing apartments. Yes, I did see that show. Yeah, I
I
liked it.
need to see that.
Buildings begin to offer support and eventually fall in love across their divide. Yeah, I did watch that. Was it a movie or a show? I forgot, but
I
I
don't
did
know, but I want
watch
to
it.
watch it.
I think it was on Netflix, so you could probably search for it. I don't know if it was a Netflix original, but it was dubbed, and then you have the subtitles. So if you guys are interested, that would be the movie Alive. Another was Annihilation. The scenes that took place inside the gorge infused the DNA nature of things they encounter here reminded me of the mutations in Area X. Though some of the CGI in the gorge seemed subpar, I agree. The ending seemed straight out of the first Jason Bourne movie,
Ah,
The Bourne
very
Identity.
true.
So there may be others in there that I haven't picked up on, but those are the three that jumped out at me. The more I thought about it, the more it seemed like something an AI system would create. Of course, I realized that in Hollywood, a lot of movie pitches are done this way. Alive meets Annihilation meets Jason Bourne. That's a good one, Dodie. All that being said, the movie did work for me. What it may have lacked in genuine originality and unpredictability, it made up for the chemistry. Yes,
Yeah.
this is what me and Becky were talking about. I thought the chemistry between the two actors was great. Enough backstory to make the relationship meaningful worked for me anyway. Interested to hear your reactions. Don't get mutated. And that would be Dodie from Wells, Maine.
That's great, Dodie. Thank you so much. And I really like you pointing out the particular movies that you mentioned.
Yeah, that you were referencing that you thought of. I had the same feel too. It's like this sounds like mashed up of these things, reused content, but in a different context of a story.
That's very cool. Thanks, Dodie.
All right. Well, to submit your feedback, just to let you guys know, we could be heard on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, Deezer, or whatever podcast player of choice. You could easily give us a rating or review. 5 stars are always welcomed, especially if you could write a little thought in that in Apple Podcasts or Spotify. To submit your thoughts and theories, just like Dodie has, you could go to our Facebook group, which would be facebook.com/Adrenaline Cinema Podcast. I did put out an image saying, hey, leave your thoughts in the comments below. Whatever's on Facebook goes into Instagram because it's both meta. It works. It's the same, pretty much the same company. We didn't get any from that, but you can email us like Dodie had at adrenalinecinema@gmail.com, and we'll read it just like we did. Or if you felt the need to record yourself, you could send that in as an attachment. Everybody has the ability to do that, sending like a voice message or something. Just do that. But that's about it. But this is pretty much, like I said, we're coming down to the very end of it. Where can listeners hear you, Becky?
I can be found here on Adrenaline Cinema Podcast and on occasion on Panels to Pixels Podcast. I can also be found on What's On Tonight podcast. That is my baby that Mark has been so generous to help me grow. And there, Mandy and I are currently covering The Pit, found on Max. It's a great medical drama done over the course of a 15-hour shift. It is full of real life stories, drama, good comedic moments. If you're not watching, please start watching. And if you are watching, please check it out and then come and give our podcast a listen. We greatly appreciate it.
Awesome.
What about you?
Well, yeah, as always, you could hear me here right on Adrenaline Cinema Podcast as always, as well as Panels to Pixels Podcast. Right now, we're covering Invincible and later on, we're going to be doing Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. We recently did, Ramona and I covered Captain America Brave New World for when we first reaction of it. So we spent almost 2 hours talking about a 2-hour film. You could also hear me on the Pirate Core Music Podcast, which could be found on the Pirate Core Entertainment Podcast. And that's where you could hear other episodes of What's On Tonight or The Sleigh Lounge with Billy and Will when they come back. So just look for that in your podcast players of choice, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and everything. Subscribe. Or you could go to the YouTube channels as well, just like what we have here on Adrenaline Cinema Podcast. We have a YouTube channel as well as a YouTube podcast that's on there, or playlist. The Pirate Core Music Podcast, we launched it with Jagged Little Pill by Alanis Morissette that Becky and I had covered. So I highly recommend everybody check that out. And it was fun, and it really reinvigorated my thoughts on music and playing and getting back into that love. Next up that we will be covering will be Guns N' Roses' Appetite for Destruction. I just have to get in touch with Rima. Look for that to come out by the end of March. I'm hoping she and I are able to get together and record it. I already have the docs set up, started doing research. Literally, it's just having the conversation and having fun. And that's just scheduling. But other than that, that's about it. As far as what's coming up on here, I'm not sure yet, because I've been spontaneously throwing things out there and people have just been jumping on. So we've been having a little bit more fun with it, and I'm glad I'm getting a little bit more content out to you guys. So we might be back with the ending or season finale talk about Mayfair Witches.
Yes,
so
we
have to get back to that. But other than that, I just want to thank everyone for listening. I'm Mark.
And I'm Becky.
And this was Adrenaline Cinema Podcast, and I want to thank everyone for listening. We'll talk to you the next time we change the reel.
Bye.